am joined today by Dr. Donna Davis of the University of Oregon. She's the director of the Strategic Communication Master's Program here at the Oregon Reality Lab in Portland. She has a PhD in mass communication from the University of Florida, where she studied relationship formation in immersive virtual environments. Thank you for having me, Donna.
My pleasure.
In this beautiful place.
Thank you.
Before you came to the University of Oregon, what did you do as a career, and what actually got you started in studying virtual environments?
Well, I had about a 25-year career in primarily nonprofit communication. When I say worked in nonprofits, I did communications and fundraising for environmental organizations, arts and cultural organizations. I loved what I did, got to save sea turtles in their habitats and raised money for public broadcasting. But I was one of those odd people that as my children were young, they were well tended to while I worked. But as they hit high school years, I realized they were at an age where they were never going to want me less, but need me more. So I quit working to stay home and be a full-time mom. Of course,
Really?
that
So
wasn't.
you just quit.
I just quit. I
All right.
jumped off the hamster wheel and continued to teach as an adjunct at the University of Florida just to keep myself busy. And I was in a fortunate position where I could afford to do that. But as they started to fly the nest, I realized I needed to get back into high gear. And I had been out long enough that I felt like I needed to do some retrofitting. So I went to graduate school. I got a master's in family, youth, and community science because I had raised so many other people's children. And I watched how many of them raised themselves, so often in front of an electronic device, that I decided I wanted to keep going and get a PhD in communications with the idea of studying family media literacy. I was passionate about it, and I wanted to help parents figure out how to not let the digital devices raise their kids. Right. And so that was my mission as I started my PhD, and I took an elective class in virtual worlds, and it blew my mind. I just thought I'd never seen anything like it. I took a hard right and never looked back. So I ended up diving in full steam ahead with avatars in virtual worlds and looking at it as this almost parallel universe that was the Wild West with no rules. And yet people are finding each other there and doing crazy things in there. And I just needed to understand what that was all about. And here I am now, 14 years later, with a lab that gets to study it.
With a lot of your background in public relations and in nonprofit, helping nonprofits fundraise, in what ways is this different than that, what you do now, and in what ways is it similar?
Well, I think that my career gave me skills that are really important in what I teach. I am not just an academic. I was a professional and an academic. In that, I think, especially nonprofit work, you had to be really scrappy. Our graduate program is in strategic communication. In strategic communication, all the tools are the same. Who's your target audience? Who are your stakeholders? What are you trying to achieve? What resources are available? What resources do you need? Especially in this moment in time, the pandemic gave us a new way of thinking about everything. As we are in a moment of climate crisis, as we're in an existential crisis of who are we and what's really important, all of that has given me an insight to how do we use this technology to address some of those huge issues and to keep us connected at a time where connection can be really very difficult.
In 2018, you co-wrote an article with Derek Moscato of the University of Washington called, and bear with me on this one because it's a long title, The Philanthropic Avatar, an Analysis of Fundraising in Virtual Worlds Through the Lens of Social Capital. My question for you is, what exactly is social capital,
Hmm.
and how did it reflect on the results of your research?
The That particular body of work was based on years of being involved in the virtual world. Social capital, as we think about capital in our lives, we can have fiscal capital, we can have physical capital. So, how much money is in the bank? How much house do I own? Do I own my car? Social capital is an asset that's built by reciprocity with other people. Through our social engagement, we build resources for ourselves. And resources can be in the form of raising money, or having friends and building a social life, or doing for each other. People build social capital in virtual worlds, and I discovered this through the work I was doing with people with Parkinson's disease, who created a Parkinson's support group in the virtual world. And they were from all over the world. And we'd sit around in a living room every Thursday morning at 10 o'clock and talk about, I was the observer in the room. Tell me what it means to have Parkinson's disease. And they could say, oh, my doc recommended this, or I've started this new drug, or do you have a problem with sleeping? Or, how do you talk to your spouse when they look at you with pity? I mean, all of those things that only people in that circumstance can really understand. They found each other, and it was founded by an 84-year-old woman with Parkinson's, who was one of the greatest human beings in my lifetime that I've had the privilege of knowing. And she was, when she turned 90, several of us flew from all around the country to be with her for her 90th birthday.
Wow.
That's social capital.
That's cool.
It manifests in different ways depending on where you are and who you're with and what you need.
Well, I know that you were in the article talking about research on three separate charity
Right.
groups. Michael J. Fox Foundation. Oh gosh, Live End.
It was the American Cancer Society.
American Cancer Society, yes.
And the other one was for children in Africa.
Live and Learn.
In Kenya, there you go. And and that one was so fascinating because it was purely social capital that allowed her to do what she did. And it was only through the virtual world, because she was a woman who lived in Germany. And she did these fundraisers using the musicians of the virtual world. They would come and they would sing, and people would donate at these concerts for Live and Learn in Kenya. And she was able to raise enough money to build a school and provide clothes and provide food and provide books to these children in Kenya, where in the middle of the winter, in Germany and Bavaria, where she'd be locked in the snow, she could be having these concerts out on a field of flowers and raising money for children in Kenya. Similarly, with the American Cancer Society, they did Relay for Life in Second Life, the virtual world, and they raise over $250,000 a year from avatars.
Wow. And
the most amazing moment for me in doing that work was going to one of those concerts, and the musician was a professional electric violinist from the Netherlands. And the place is packed. There's lots of people, and he's on his stage. His avatar is on a stage. His human is in his studio in the Netherlands and doing a live stream with his violin in real time, in live time. And he said, now, come on, everybody. I know you all know people who've had cancer. Everybody is touched by cancer. So let's do what we can right now to help the American Cancer Association. He didn't know the name of the organization. But he really loved the people that were raising this money for this organization, and he had been affected by cancer. So he's raising money for an organization in the U.S. from his studio in the Netherlands with people from all around the world by performing, and people have the ability to tip in the virtual world, and those tips add up to the contributions.
In thinking about fundraising for nonprofits, things like that, in the real world, you think having concerts, having Relay for Life, having silent auctions and things like that. Not only can you do that in the virtual world, but you're also looking at being able to do even more because you're in the virtual world. One of my questions was actually going to be like, if somebody wanted to start a virtual fundraiser of some kind, what are some of the events that could happen? And the truth is that, I mean, the way that you've described it here, you can do almost anything that you want. I mean, you could do a walkathon and have people on treadmills.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah, you're limited only by your imagination.
right.
Truly.
So that's so interesting.
And I think, though, that there are, this year has been, even the last 2 years, the metaverse is the word we hear about all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And the game changer is that now you have platforms like Roblox and Animal Crossing and Fortnite that have millions of people who will come to listen to Ariana Grande.
Yes.
It's not some, he's a professional violinist in the Netherlands. It's Ariana Grande. And millions of people in real time, Little Nas X and Roblox. You've got these amazing big names that are in there with millions of people in real time watching those events in simulcast across the world in these platforms. And the follow up for them is that you then look at how many extra downloads of their music that followed that, or the live streams or the streams that followed that, or the YouTube views that followed that. It's ongoing and it's outrageous. I mean, it's great for their brand, it's great for the platforms. But now we're in that moment where if they can do that, why not partner with one of them and have them? I mean, it used to be Jerry Lewis's telethon for muscular dystrophy every Labor Day weekend that we would watch on TV. Nobody, to my knowledge, has figured out that there is a just as big, if not bigger, an audience that's out there and that can be reached and is engaged in that platform in crazy ways. And again, you're limited only by your imagination.
In terms of marketing, how might someone go about marketing for those kind of events?
Well, I think you have to start by actually understanding the platform. You know, who's in there, who's the audience. And if you've got a huge name like Lil Nas X or Ariana Grande, the same way they marketed those events, you would market that in world. And you've got other platforms where those people are, whether they're Facebook groups that are following those platforms or those people. You've got fan clubs, you've got affinity groups across social platforms. There are now social platforms that also connect people like
Discord?
Thank you.
Discord,
where gamers are usually on Discord. But I'm part of multiple Discord groups for different educators in VR or. So you can set up an affinity group in any of those platforms and invite people to your events. Sansar is one that we go frolic in during our classes to see the Smithsonian and NASA's Apollo Museum. And to log in, there's that big screen that comes up with all of, you can market on those screens. This event is coming, they all have calendars, they all have event calendars. So it's knowing who's there, what type of communication where are they going for their information, and then how do you get your messages there to let them know it's coming. And then, of course, if it's for an organization like the Michael J. Fox Foundation or the American Cancer Society, you also have your own channels where you can say, create an account and join us at this event. And give people time to, if they've never been in, to figure it out. In the meantime, there are millions of people who are already there, who've probably been touched by some of these diseases, illnesses, ails that people are raising money to fix.
What would you say are the benefits and problem areas of fundraising virtually?
In the particular piece that you referenced before, where we talked about the American Cancer Society, Michael J. Fox, and Live and Learn in Kenya, all of the people that put those things together did that as volunteers. So it takes a lot of time. And time is one of those to me, is the biggest challenge we face right now. Everybody is burdened with too much to do and not enough time. All of those organizations, those fundraisers were organized by people who were not working, who had resources, and who gave a lot of their time. It was like a passion project. So if I think of obstacles, challenges, and opportunities, starting with those challenges, it's really having a real idea of what resources you're going to need to make it happen, and having enough people who are so passionate and excited about it that they're willing to do, and they have the ability to give, is probably the biggest thing. The other part is the learning curve and getting people to come into the platform. I used to say avatar, and people would say, look at me like I had three heads. The masses who may never have been in these platforms, and they think gamer and all of that other stuff, and or being able to afford the technology, and then understanding the technology to be able to access it and really engage in it. If an 84-year-old woman with Parkinson's can do it, I can't, and certainly our 4-year-olds can do it. Anybody can. They just have to want to. Millennials and Gen Z, that's their native space. So if that's your target audience, that's where you're going to find them. And that's where the opportunity is. The concept has already been proven. Millions of people showed up for these music events in Fortnite and in Roblox. They're there. And nobody has stepped up yet to go, geez, I could raise $1 million for. Maybe you don't remember, but Live Aid, Farm Aid, all of these major events that were put on to help save the world, to help save the farmers. It took some crazy person to have this wild idea to throw a concert, multiple day concert, and reach out to their buddies and say, hey, will you help me on this? And everybody showed up because everybody was passionate about it. There's no reason, and it would cost about 100th or 1,000th of what it would cost to put on a multi-day event in the physical world, and flying people from all around the world to come to an event. And they can look like and dress like and be like anything they want to when they get there.
If someone were to ask you, what are the steps I would need to take to hold a virtual fundraiser, what would you tell them?
Start by understanding the platform and the people that are in the platform and the organization that you're going to represent. Who is your stakeholder? Again, who are you trying to serve? Making sure everybody is comfortable with each other, understanding the platform, the community that you're going to. And then I would say the other piece of that is, what is your unique story that is going to draw people there? They've got to have a really good reason to want to come. And then when they do, they've got to have a really good reason to give. And for people like the woman from Live and Learn in Kenya, her strength was her superpower to make really wonderful friends who'd say, I want to support you because I believe in you. That's social capital. And, but that's rare. So if you've already got a brand name like a Michael J. Fox, the Fox Foundation, or you've got the American Cancer Society, that are known organizations, trusted organizations, the other piece of that is making sure that when people are giving, that it's going to the organization, and being able to create trust that what they're donating, just like that, that happens in the physical world. If they're giving to your event, to an organization, how do they know that the money you're raising is actually doing the work it's supposed to do? So it's, understanding what those steps are to make sure that you can tell that story in an authentic and honest way, I think are the biggest things.
Again, I wanted to thank you for letting me come and interview you. You have a very unique background and a unique insight into all of this, and I think it is useful for people to be able to see it from somebody who has such a unique perspective and is able to answer a lot of questions that may be ruminating in their minds. But thank you again for sharing this beautiful space with me.
My
And,
pleasure. Thank you.